What's up, y'all? My name is Lachelle, and welcome back to All Care, Some Responsibility, where I share my lukewarm takes at the intersection of pop culture and cultural analysis. Everything I say here is my opinion, and you can take it, but I really prefer you leave it and come up with your own. On today's episode, my dear sisters, I'ma hold y'all hand when I say this. Your homophobia and commitment to the patriarchy got us all out here looking goofy. So let's talk about it. So in January, Afro Analytic tweeted, cishet women don't even realize they cheapen our analysis of these ninjas' misogyny by linking it to repressed gayness. And really, I'm inclined to agree. So, this is because it seems we've moved into this era where people have been taking a great pleasure in exposing down low men or ascribing homosexuality to men for even the slightest transgressions. And by transgressions, I really mean silly things, right? Like, oh, he has a facial routine. He lets get in mani pedis. He stands Beyonce. And okay, maybe not Beyonce because it's Beyonce, but y'all know what I mean. Basically, at every turn, men are getting called zesty or sassy. And from the beginning, when this term rolled out, queer folks have been saying and trying to tell cishet women that it's not actually given what y'all think it's given, right? Like the terminology is rooted in homophobia and by extension, a level of internalized misogyny. Women are seeing these traits that they in the patriarchy have stereotypically decided are specific to women and femininity, all of these very much traditional heteronormative roles and behaviors. And instead of thinking, oh, this man is unafraid of embracing that femininity or actively working to deconstruct misogyny and patriarchy in himself, they think gay. And it's one thing when these are minuscule day-to-day activities, right? It's still wrong, but people are more inclined to just get over it. But the problem is that lately this has become an insult when men also engage in more abusive behaviors. We already know that men think that arguing, being emotional, and being reactive are female behaviors, right? It's even worse if you're a black woman. You get labeled as angry or aggressive. And when men see other men behave this way, they're liable to call them bitches, say they acting like women. But at the same time, women who vehemently try to combat these stereotypes often have the same reaction. And while some, just some, and just marginally, have the wherewithal not to call them bitches or say they're acting like females, they have turned instead to using sassy or zesty as if it's somehow more covert or subtle. And it ain't. Like these women are seeing what they too subconsciously or unconsciously, consciously, who knows? They have assigned these things as female behaviors and see them being exuded by men and essentially have deemed these ninjas lacking and therefore they must be gay. A man argues with you, gay. A man cusses you out, gay. He put his hands on you, gay. And dare one of these fools see you looking all bad and bougie and decide that you ain't worth a look or an effort, gay. And granted, there is a level of homosociality among men. They absolutely operate under the male gaze and for male approval, but that isn't because of homosexuality, it's because of patriarchy. One critical lens and the most common lens of homosexuality analyzes how men interact and form relationships and social bonds with other men to construct power and to protect male territory and privilege. In contrast, when we start to include homosexuality and homoeroticism, this requires an additional level of sexual attraction to the same sex. And usually the men that we're trying to label as down low or undercover, well, maybe not usually, but sometimes, in good portion, a lot of them are not actual homosexual men, right? And that's not to disregard or erase bisexuality, right? There is absolutely the possibility that some of these men we are rightfully calling gay or down low. But by and large, we are talking about men who absolutely desire women, right? In fact, one of the guiding principles of homosociality is to be extremely homophobic. So, yes, even if they may actually desire men within the homosocial aspect, they do, and they will desire women. But simultaneously, they must also see us as subhuman, as objects, as less than despite their sexual attraction. And the word for that is misogyny. So, this idea that we're going to mistake misogyny for gayness is wild, right? Equating femininity when presented by men as repressed queerness is diabolical, y'all. Especially in a world where we are trying to deconstruct gender norms, and especially for heterosexual women trying to find men who are emotionally intelligent and capable of expressing those emotions and vulnerability without beating our asses in the process. So we really do have to stop trying to label these so-called bad behaviors as being gay, being hypersexual, womanizing, abusive towards women. All of these things are not more or less inherent behaviors or of queer men. And queer men in themselves are not exempt from being misogynistic, right? Homosexuality and misogyny are not mutually exclusive, nor is one a precursor to the other. So we got to stop being silly, right? Cis het women, especially Black women, because that's who I'm in community with, really have to confront their homophobia and aspirations to assimilate into the patriarchy because it's not serving us. And sure, right, some will say, well, Black women are being endangered by Black men. And this is evident in transmission rates of AIDS and HIV and other STDs. And I know this, right? Black women make up a large portion of new cases, particularly in the South. But this isn't some unique condition of sleeping with DL men or add bisexual men to the context for that matter, since we try to act as if bisexual men are just gay. And yes, I'm shaking my damn head at that too. But it's this notion that we are trying to revert back to these ideologies of the 80s that AIDS and HIV are somehow these gay diseases, this gay disease that is specific to gay men, when really it's just a symptom of the lack of sexual education and our refusal to destigmatize sexual health. Not to mention, men in general do not take care of their health, sexual or otherwise. And the homophobia in this justification becomes evident by the lack of vitriol given to heterosexual men who also lack sexual discipline. Cheating ass men stay with a woman. And it's kind of embarrassing. So if we are trying to prioritize our sexual health, everyone has to be put to the fire, even ourselves, right? To ensure that we are all making our partners do their due diligence before ever getting access to our bodies. But blaming bi or DL men is it's kind of disgusting. So I need us to get over the queer phobia so we can actually address the issue that as cishet women, as women, are literally killing us daily, which is misogyny. And I think many of us are being blinded by it because as much as you want to deny it, there is a desire for the male gaze, right? You desire partnership, love, and care from men. I mean, if you aren't a lesbian, right? And that's okay to admit, right? But if you don't admit it, you'll keep looking at men who do not provide that option as queer because your ego can't take it. Unless you really are just that homophobic, and some of y'all are. And again, sit with that. But for those of you who want us to believe you are not homophobic, you want your pride is really trying to convince you that men will see you as valuable and rise to your standards when in actuality, most of them will simply drag you to hell with them. They aren't devaluing, rejecting, or abusing you out of a lack of attraction, but rather because of their inability and conditioning to see you as anything but your charisma, uniqueness, nerve, and talent. And I don't mean that literally. So the girls who get it, they get it, right? And I get that's a hard pill to swallow, because who wants to consider that the person or the people you want don't want you, that they don't actually like or value you? Who wants to believe that your worth is only measured by what's between your thighs and your willingness to share it? And I know even as women, we are also being raised in these same systems that try to define masculinity and femininity with rigidity and as this finite point, instead of letting it be flexible and on a spectrum. But diverting to queerphobia to avoid reconciling that, or doing the labor to decenter men and deconstruct patriarchal norms, is a cop out. It's a lazy one. It is a tired one. Like, we really have to find new jokes, pick new insults, because ladies, we're smarter than that. Right? It's disappointing and it's harmful to the LGBTQ community, especially Black gay men. They aren't dangerous just because they're gay. Men are dangerous because they're men. They remain women's greatest danger, period. If anything, one would hope that men of queer identities would be less of a danger because the desirability is removed from the equation. And anecdotally, that's often the case. You'll hear women who have dated by men state that they were safer, they felt safer as a home. And that's not to say that queer men are immediately a safe haven. But I am saying, at least if they ain't shit, it won't be because you're refusing to sleep with them, which should make it clearer, which should make it easier for you to call a spade a spade. And that's misogyny. So how gay and bisexual men are getting dragged into these heterosexual shenanigans of misogynistic men just disliking cishet women or women in general, I will not know. And fearing homosexuality more than misogyny can't be the hill you want to die on. So, women, like, especially my sisters, we gotta remove that oppressive, conservative, misogynistic monkey from off our backs, right? It's not godly. It ain't you trying to protect yourself. It's just homophobia, shielding you from male contempt and having your heart broken when they inevitably continue to let you down. And that's something you got to sit with. But again, right, as I stated in the beginning, that's just my opinion. And you can take it, but I prefer you leave it and perhaps come up with your own. So just think about it. And until next time, I'll see you soon.